All right, listeners, strap in because this deep dive is going to be a wild one. We're going deep, deep into conspiracy theory territory.
Oh, yeah.
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 We're talking Skull and Bones,
Okay.
like that super secret, shadowy Yale society.
Right.
All thanks to one of our listeners who sent in this fascinating book by Antony Sutton called America's Secret Establishment.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And let me tell you, expert speaker.
Yeah.
This thing reads like a conspiracy thriller. Secret handshakes, whispers of global control, the whole 9 yards. This is right up your alley.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that gets people talking.
Oh, yeah.
Before we go down the rabbit hole too far, let's make sure our listeners are up to speed. Skull and Bones is this super exclusive club founded way back in 1833 at Yale.
Yale, okay.
Known for its, well, bizarre rituals and even more bizarre level of secrecy.
Okay.
Now, Sutton, he wasn't just some casual observer. He was a serious researcher at Stanford's Hoover Institution. And he dug deep, way past the rituals and the spooky stuff.
Right.
His claim, and it's a big one, is that this tiny group packed with bonesmen, they're the ones holding the real power in America.
Okay, so we're not just talking about some college prank gone wrong here.
No.
These guys are the real deal. What are we even talking about? What kind of influence?
Sutton had 3 big ideas he laid out in this book.
Hurry, hit me.
1, there's this elite group, mostly bonesmen, calling all the shots from the shadows, steering America, the whole country, towards whatever their grand plan is. 2, they're playing both sides. Like they're funding and manipulating global conflicts, creating chaos, just to control the outcome.
Hold on. You're saying they're funding the good guys and the bad guys?
That's what he's saying. He called it the Hegelian dialectic.
That's like 4D chess with the entire world.
Right. And as if that wasn't enough, point number 3. Skull and Bones, it's not just some powerful club. It's got all the hallmarks of a full-blown secret society. Bizarre rituals, hidden agendas.
Okay, calm.
And even, get this, possible ties to the Illuminati.
The Illuminati. Like pyramids and the all-seeing eye Illuminati. You're messing with me.
Hey, I'm just following Sutton's lead here.
Yeah.
It's like he opened up a conspiracy thriller and said, hold my beer, I've got this.
Okay, point taken. But you can't just drop bombshells like that without any evidence, right? Oh, he's got evidence. Or at least he presents it as such. And here's the biggest bomb of all. Sutton claims Skull and Bones financed the Bolshevik Revolution.
What?
Yeah, and helped prop up the Soviet Union.
Whoa. Hold up a sec. So you're telling me that while the U.S. government was, like, publicly denouncing the Soviets as the big bad wolf,
Right.
Skull and Bones was secretly bankrolling them?
That's exactly what Sutton argues, yeah.
That's insane.
It's a wild theory, no doubt.
Wild.
And the key figure he points to is W. Averell Harriman.
Okay.
Now, this guy was a big deal. Skull and Bonesman,
Right.
U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union, a governor, even ran for president. But according to Sutton, he was also raking in profits through shady business deals with the Soviets.
Talk about a conflict of interest. Was he working with the U.S. or against them? Whose side was he really on? That's the million-dollar question. Sutton points to things like the manganese concession, where Harriman's company is helping the Soviets develop their mining operations, while keeping the U.S. government totally in the dark.
Wow.
He even links Harriman to the financing of the Soviet Union's first 5-year plan.
So is the idea here that Skull and Bones is trying to build up the Soviet Union as, like, a global threat just to keep things interesting, some kind of messed up game of chicken?
Well, that's where the Hegelian dialectic comes back in.
Yeah.
Create the conflict, control the outcome. But hold on to your hat, because it gets even wilder.
Wilder than this, okay.
Sutton claims that Skull and Bones was also involved in financing Hitler.
Wait, seriously?
Financing Hitler and the Nazis.
Hold on a minute. First it was the Soviets, and now you're saying they were in bed with the Nazis too. How could they be connected to both?
All right. So Sutton brings up this German industrialist, Fritz Thyssen,
Okay.
early Hitler supporter.
Right.
And guess what? He's got links to Harriman
No way.
and the Guarantee Trust Company,
Of course.
which, surprise, surprise, has ties back to, you guessed it, Skull and Bones. Oh, and then there's the Union Banking Corporation, allegedly another piece of the puzzle with connections to the Nazis.
It's like every thread leads back to.
It's a tangled web, that's for sure.
It's a lot to process. I mean, okay, sure, somebody profited off of World War II. It's awful, but sadly, not surprising.
Right.
But are we really saying that Skull and Bones orchestrated the whole thing?
Well, Sutton doesn't come right out and say that, but he's definitely suggesting they were pulling strings in the shadows, profiting from the chaos they helped create.
Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, that Sutton is onto something here. That this isn't just a case of war profiteering, but like global manipulation on a scale we can barely imagine. It can't just be about the money, right? What's the end game here? World domination.
Well, according to Sutton, their influence reaches even further than war and finance.
Really?
He even ties them to the American education system.
What?
Yeah.
Education? Like textbooks and pop quizzes? What are we talking about?
This is where things get really interesting.
Seriously, education. I'm trying to picture like a shadowy cabal deciding what goes in 5th grade textbooks. How does that even work?
Well, Sutton focuses on a group he calls the Troika. Basically, 3 big names in education back in the day. Daniel Coit Gilman, Andrew Dixon White, and Timothy Dwight.
Okay.
Gilman, he founded Johns Hopkins University. White was one of the guys behind Cornell. And Dwight, president of Yale.
Let me guess. All bonesmen.
You got it. All 3 of them.
What a shocker. It's like every conspiracy theory needs its university connection. Right. But what were they actually doing? Rewriting history books or something?
Sutton's claim is that they brought this, like, very specific educational philosophy back from Germany.
Okay.
One that really pushed rote learning, memorization and following the rules.
Right.
Emphasis on obedience to the state.
Obedience to the state.
Instead of, critical thinking,
right,
questioning authority, that sort of thing.
Sounds awfully convenient, doesn't it? Create an education system that pumps out a bunch of obedient citizens for your grand plan.
Well, that's kind of Sutton's point.
Wow.
And the link he makes is through this psychologist, G. Stanley Hall.
Okay.
Studied in Germany under, drum roll, Wilhelm Wundt.
Why does that name sound familiar?
The father of experimental psychology. That's Wundt.
Oh, right. Wasn't there something about his family?
To get this, Wundt's own grandfather, rumored to be an Illuminati member.
Wait, are you serious? Not the Illuminati again. It's like Sutton found a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to a Dan Brown novel. But how does psychology tie into all of this?
Okay, so Sutton uses Hall as a bridge to connect this whole German school of thought to John Dewey.
Okay.
And Dewey, he's a huge name in American education, hugely influential.
Right.
And Dewey, he was all about this idea of education for social ends.
Social ends, okay.
Which Sutton reads as basically making education serve the interests of
the state.
The state, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like he's saying they're shaping the way American kids are taught, even to this day.
Okay, now that's just, I can kind of sort of buy into the whole shadowy elite thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But controlling how our kids are educated...
It's a lot.
It's a lot to swallow.
It's definitely one of Sutton's more ambitious claims.
Ambitious. You're being generous. But look, all this talk of secret societies and global control, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
What's that?
All the rituals. All the secrets. It's like something out of a movie. What's the deal with all that?
Well, the rituals are definitely a big part of the whole Skull and Bones mystique.
Yep.
We've got accounts of these really elaborate initiation ceremonies, some from Sutton himself, some from other historical sources he pulls from. You've got coffins, bones, chanting.
This is getting weirder by the minute.
And even allegedly naked mud wrestling.
Naked mud wrestling. Seriously, okay, that's just... I don't even know what to say to that. It's hard to take these guys seriously as, like, puppet masters of the universe when they're rolling around in the mud in their birthday suits.
Yeah, some of it does sound pretty ridiculous, I'll give you that.
Okay.
But I think that's part of what keeps people fascinated.
I guess.
The secrecy, the exclusivity, the fact that they've had so many powerful people as members.
Right.
It all adds to the mystery. Plus, there's the whole 322 thing.
Ah, yes. Their super secret emblem. What is the deal with that number? Is it just a random number they thought sounded cool?
Well, nobody really knows for sure. Sutton, he throws out a few ideas.
Okay.
Maybe it's a date, a code.
Yeah.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Wow.
He also makes a big deal out of their membership catalogs.
Right, the ones that are updated every year and kept top secret, right?
Exactly. Like a who's who of the American elite.
Talk about an exclusive club.
Yeah.
But, we do have to acknowledge Sutton's work, it's not exactly universally accepted, is it?
Let's just say it's controversial.
That's one way to put it. Plenty of historians out there who say he's, cherry-picking evidence, exaggerating connections.
Yeah.
Creating a narrative that's more fiction than fact.
He definitely had a point of view, and he wasn't afraid to connect the dots, even if they were far apart.
So where does that leave us? Do we just dismiss Sutton as a conspiracy nut and move on?
Not so fast.
No.
Not so fast. Even if, and it's a big if, but even if we say Sutton maybe got a little carried away with some of his conclusions,
Right.
I still think there's something valuable here. It makes you think, about what we don't know.
Yep.
What if there are these, like, hidden forces shaping things we don't even see?
It's like he's saying, hey, don't just take my word for it. Go do your own research. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Question everything.
Right. And dig deeper. Always dig deeper.
I like it.
But here's the thing. That world Sutton was writing about, the early 20th century, it's a different world. Back then, power was different. More about, like, controlling oil fields and steel mills.
Yeah, totally. It was all about resources, industries, who's got their hands on the levers of government.
Exactly. But today, I mean, look at us. It's all about tech, information, global networks moving at the speed of light. So even if a group like Skull and Bones IS out there pulling strings, can they really keep up? Can they control this world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It makes you wonder, though. Sutton's whole thing about the Hegelian dialectic, manipulating conflict, playing both sides to get what you want. What if that's happening online right now? Disinformation campaigns, those algorithms that seem to know what you're thinking before you do. It's a different kind of battlefield, but maybe the game's the same.
Right. It's like instead of funding wars, they're funding Twitter bots.
It sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but then again, the whole Skull and Bones thing sounded a little out there at first, too.
That's true. But who controls this new digital world? Who's calling the shots? Tech giants. It's not exactly a secret that they're sitting on mountains of data influencing elections. They can literally shape the narrative on a global scale. It's a whole different type of power. More subtle, maybe, but not so different from what Sutton was describing, just updated.
So maybe the game hasn't changed all that much after all, just the players. Instead of robber barons, it's tech moguls.
Exactly. And instead of secret societies meeting in tombs, they're meeting in, well, it's probably still fancy rooms, just with better Wi-Fi.
Sadly, probably true. So where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
For me, I think it just highlights how important it is to be, like, really critical thinkers. Question everything. Be aware of the forces shaping our world, even the ones we can't see. Because power, it doesn't always wear a suit and tie. Sometimes it hides in plain sight.
Well said, as always. Listeners, we've gone from dusty old history books to the cutting edge of the digital age in this deep dive, and honestly, we've barely scratched the surface. What do you think? Is Sutton onto something, or is it all just a wild conspiracy theory? Whatever you decide, keep those critical thinking caps on, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.